excerpt of What's It Like Living in Philadelphia, Part 4.
And you know this guy as well? Oh, this is your daughter?
Are you doing like a documentary?
Yeah, I'm going to do a little podcast. Let me tell you, somebody told me, I'm going to cry right now. Somebody, and for those of us, somebody told me that somebody got killed right there. I didn't know who it was. I just drove up to buy something and I saw his picture. I'm like, wait, I know this guy. Let me tell you something how this is powerful. I do a podcast. And the latest podcast is called What's It Like Living in Philly. I came in here looking for people to interview. He was at the back last week. And he said, and I said to him, would you like to come on the podcast? And he said, sure. And I interviewed him for my podcast. He's on the podcast. This guy, yes. He spoke for 4 minutes. And I said to him, what's it like living in Philly on the podcast? I said, I'm doing a documentary series on what's it like living in Philly on my podcast. Would you like to come? He said, sure. And he got up and he talked passionately. And he said, I like it in Philly. It's okay. It's very dangerous. And he said, you have to be safe. You have to know who the people you hang with. You have to know. And in fact, it's available on the podcast now. And it's called the Neoliberal podcast.
What is it?
The Neoliberal podcast. I'll just give you the information in a second. But it's an emotional moment for me. I live in Germantown as well. I live in Germantown, and you hear of, and in Philadelphia, you're constantly hearing of the young men being gunned down and black on black violence and issue of safety, and it's daunting to see what's going on. But it's just quite interesting that he just spoke on the show.
Right.
What's it like? And he talked about violence. And he even suggested how you can be safe, and just to see that this young man, very young man.
Yeah.
Yes. What do you say? What's it like living in Philly?
For me?
Yeah.
For a woman, it's scary when you hear about all the things that's happening around you. And I'm raising a man. My son. This is my son's best friend.
It's your son's best friend.
My son's best friend.
Oh, wow.
My son is in college.
Yes.
Last year at college.
Yeah.
But it's not easy hearing that this is like the fourth friend.
Yeah.
Of my son.
The fourth friend?
Yeah.
How old is your friend? Yes,
my son is 22.
You're and oh wow.
This is number 4.
And how did he feel? How was he dealing with it?
Not well.
Angry,
frustrated, sad. It's a lot to deal with. It's a lot to deal with mentally. It's a lot to take in. And it's like things happen all over the world, but when you you're like living in a city where it's happening around you every day, all day, how do you deal with it?
Yeah.
How do you deal with that mentally? How do you go on and go to work? You just gotta pray. You gotta pray for your kids.
That is true.
You know what I mean?
That is true. I am here right at the corner of Shelton and Chew, and I happen to come upon this particular. I usually come to this store sometimes, and actually, about 2 months ago, I was right at this section right here, right across the street, right at that particular. I was right at that particular shop, and I was about to get out the car, and right here there was shooting, and I was right there. And this particular area is quite telling in Philadelphia. Quite telling. It's quite sad to see what's going on in Philadelphia and so on. But as I say to you, I just interviewed this guy for our podcast series, and he spoke so passionately about what's going on in Philadelphia. And if you haven't heard that podcast, it's episode 3. I mean, sorry, it's not episode 3. It's season 4, but it's part of the series Living in Philly Part 3. This is the Neoliberal podcast coming to you live from Germantown, and we're right at the corner of Chew and Shelton, and we are and we just saw a law enforcement officer just came into the store, and they usually are parked right here. The officers are usually parked right here or across the street, and the guy was gunned down right here, right at this spot. There's been several killings. In fact, some time ago I talked about these 2 gentlemen who were shot and killed. on the show talking about violence. It's quite sad. Saddens me. This is the Neoliberal podcast. We'll be right back after this.